Yes, people. Welcome back to another edition of Agenda FC on the Sarcasm City TV YouTube, brought to you by myself, Flawless Mr. Take Note, and I'm joined by one of my fellow co-hosts, a regular on the channel, Ballers at the Bridge, Sarcasm City Sports Q&As, watch-alongs, NBA watch-alongs, you name it, he's here. Man like Petros, aka Peter, is in the building. Even though we were just literally on the live stream, I still gotta ask this because a lot could have changed in 10 minutes. How you doing, Peter? You good?
I'm good, bro. I've got this AFCON game on in the background, but I'm chilling.
Yeah, okay. All right. You know what I'm saying? So please keep us updated and posted on that. And like I start each and every live show on the channel, love to everyone who's supporting Sarcasm City TV in whatever capacity. Much appreciated. Big up to you lot. I say it all the time, the Sarcasm City TV community is the best in the world. But please make sure, whether you're watching this live right now or you're watching this back, hit the like button on the video. Share it across all the socials as well. Let's get as many people in here as possible. Share it across all the socials and subscribe to the channel. Sarcasm City TV is road to 4K. And when you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification bell and go hit the notification bell on all the individual videos as well. Simply because sometimes YouTube, for whatever reason, doesn't notify you when we go live. And that's not just here, that's everywhere. It happens in the chat all the time. People say I didn't get a notification. So if you don't want to miss the shows, check out the upcoming live stream schedule and hit the notification bell on each of them. So for those that haven't seen Agenda FC before, the keys in the title, people, it's where people can give their unpopular opinions, their hot takes, or just general opinions on Agenda FC. And we give people the chance to give their opinions in full so they won't be cut off, and they can bring all their opinions to the table, all their stats and facts to back it up as well. Like last week we did, what was last week's episode again? It was a goodie as well. That was it. Domestic clubs not being elite, and that was Peters. So domestic clubs not doing much for elite clubs. And obviously the conversation in typical Sarcasm City fashion went in different directions, but that's what it's for. So that's what Agenda FC is all about. So as you can see from this title, people, this is another one from Peter, and he's basically saying there's many layers to this, so it was tough to title it.
Yeah,
he was saying
not, like you guys are gonna read the title, and you're going to think, well, that's a stupid title. And unless you listen to the discussion, because it's really like a multi-layered thing, there's many issues with the way that the things the Premier League emphasize, right? The things the Premier League is branded about, like being the biggest and best and most popular league in the world, right? For it to be the most popular, you need to, in theory, put the best product on the field that you can. Unfortunately, that does not include like placing a priority on the production and nurturing of English talent at every level in this Premier League. Because we see clubs in the middle of the table and lower down the table heavily rely on homegrown talent, which is fair enough. But I'm more so talking about the things you see at the top end, right? Most of, like, there's a few good English talents coming through now, right? But we're talking over the last 15, 20 years. Outside of the class of, well, that doesn't even really fit into the last 15, 20 years. Like outside of the class of 92 at United, there's not really been a core of English players lead a top level team in the Premier League to success. And there's a reason for that. With the money available, why would you necessarily settle for an English coach when A, this country has had problems producing elite level English coaches for years, and B, you can just go buy a better coach from elsewhere. Like when you outsource the responsibility to coach players into terms of finding like a foreign coach, like a Pep, a Klopp, or a Thomas Tuchel, then why would you settle for an English coach? Because who's the best English coach in the league currently? I think the answer is Graham Potter. I can't really think of other ones. Even like Bruno Lage is Portuguese, right? Brendan Rodgers is Northern Irish, technically, so he doesn't count as English. I'm not going to get into the British debate because I don't want to get into geopolitics, maybe for another show, but definitely not this one, right? Patrick Vieira, he's not English at an upstart mid-table club. Thomas Frank, he's not even English.
What is Thomas Frank's nationality?
I think he's like Danish.
Is he Danish? Okay, I legit didn't know.
He's not English. Thomas Frank is not English like that. Let's look into the top 7. Antonio Conte is Italian. Mikel Arteta is Spanish. David Moyes is English. right? So there's one of the top 7. There's David Moyes doing his thing at West Ham, so big up to him. 4th place, Ragnick is either Austrian or German. I don't know for sure, but he's one of those two, I would guess. Tuchel obviously is not English, and neither are Pep or Klopp, right? So one of the current, 2 of the top 10, I think is what it is, are English currently, which is fair enough, right? But like, there's a theme for that, right? English coaches aren't traditionally developed and at the level to take over for these high-level Premier League clubs.
Yeah.
Because you've got so many resources, you then don't have to rely on developing coaches, right? Like how you have in other nations. Like Mancini's Italian. He took a core of he took an Italian team, a core of a lot of players who played in Serie A, which all of us would currently acknowledge, or they definitely grew up in Serie A at least. All of us would acknowledge is not the strongest league currently. They went and won a European championship.
Yeah.
To go back to 2018, a lot of those French players don't currently play in France, but the majority of their footballing educations outside of a Paul Pogba and maybe a few others was received playing in Ligue 1. Like, yeah, you had a few who've left at a young age, and that's fine. But, like, again, those people grew up together playing in the French system. They're managed by a French manager. Whatever you want to say about Deschamps, like, the ability for the French team to produce a French coach, to take French nurtured talent, to produce success, it was there. It was shown. Same thing with Mancini and this Italian side. Okay? You want to go back. Portugal is a bit of an outlier. I'll give you guys that one for the Euros in 2016. Portugal is a bit of an outlier. But you want to go back to 2014. German football, prior to hosting the 2006 World Cup, had to tear it down and start all over again in terms of production of players and like coaching. German football had a bit of a renaissance at that period, right? It led them to a semifinal in the World Cup in 06. They reached the semifinal again in 2010. They reached a European final in 2008. They reached another European final in 2012. They were knocking on the door for a long period of time. They finally pushed over the top with winning the World Cup in 2014. But a good portion of those players were raised in the German domestic league. They were coached by a German coach, right? The culture was there. The emphasis was there. You could argue everything in German football was geared after, like, before the 06 World Cup, once they decided we're going to tear it down and start again, everything was geared to creating a coherent national team.
Yeah,
because the French league isn't on, like, outside of PSG, you don't have teams on that, like, financial ground with the other elite clubs around Europe.
Yeah.
But the French league is for giving a lot of French-based players a lot of game time from a young age.
Look at Clairefontaine, man. The amount of players that place has produced is crazy.
Yeah, it's viewed as like a footballing nation. Like, they give a lot of the young players are given a platform, right? In the Premier League, young players are given a platform, but you have to A, be exceptional, or B, ply your trade in a smaller pond. Like Mason Mount,
I see where you're going.
Like Mason Mount and Reece James are exceptional talents, right? They are the 1 in a million that make it, like, that are so exceptional at Cobham. And also, we have to remember, like, there's context behind that. If we had a transfer window available, would those two be playing as much as they are currently? We don't know, right? There's circumstances behind that. But, like, let's look at the elite clubs. Trent, generational talent. Sure, like, I'll give you that, right? So, of course, like, you're always going to have a Trent Alexander.
I like where you're going with this still. I didn't see this going, but go on, carry on. This is good. This is good. Go on.
Manchester United, what, like, real young English players do we have coming through it? I'm not talking 24 years old Marcus Rashford young. Like, that doesn't count. We've got Mason Greenwood, right?
Greenwood, who's an exceptional talent.
Generational talent, like 1 in a million, right? So I hear that. Manchester City, if you want to consider Foden, cool. Like, we could take the Foden example.
Foden's a good example, yeah.
Foden is a good example of, like, the English development sort of, like, modernizing. Like, a lot of people will watch Foden, and he kind of plays like a forward midfielder with, like, just the composure and, like, the sauce. He's not all, like, bucket full of nails, like crunching into tackles, like passion and like vibes. He doesn't play like Foden. The biggest compliment I can give him is he doesn't play like he's English, like traditional.
Yeah, he has a foreign style. That's what you'd say. If you didn't know, like if you didn't know his name and you watched him play, you'd be like, he's Spanish.
And again, that entire Manchester City model was shaped in the image of what Guardiola was doing at Barca, stretching back as far as 8-9 years ago. They began this process when Foden was coming through and developing. So again, that's like a bit of a unique scenario, right? We look at Tottenham. They've got Harry Winks. Does that count? Does anybody care?
He's just not. Yeah, I get your point.
Kind of basic, right?
Yeah, facts.
You've got Arsenal. You've got players like Smith Rowe and Saka, and yes, they are good players. They are good young players. They are exceptional young players. But again, like, for like the sake of this, are we really considering like? I don't consider Arsenal an elite club when I'm talking about like the top level of contending, like European and domestically, like in this league, right? But yes, also like Smith Rowe and Saka are exceptional players. Like my point is, if you are exceptional, you will get a chance at these top clubs, given the scenario exists for you to get the playing time, right? But it's not as prevalent as it is in other countries, right? Like in La Liga, I don't even necessarily want to use Athletic Club as an example because you have to be a local to play for them. But
I did not know that.
I know, like Barcelona, yeah, you have to be from the Basque region to play for them. You have to have heritage, otherwise you can't. The only reason they've got black players and Iñaki Williams and his little brother is because their mother emigrated from West Africa.
Oh, okay.
So had the kids there. They were born there, technically. Yeah. So the only like it's a little bit different in foreign countries like Spain and France and even Italy. Like these top level clubs, you've still got like young Italian players getting major minutes in Serie A. You've still got young French players getting major minutes, right? Jez, I'm throwing Martinelli out of this conversation because they bought him from Brazil. They didn't develop him. So I'm completely discounting Martinelli as like an option for this discussion. My point is, in other countries, and you could say it's because they don't have the resources available to them, so they have no other choice when developing talent to make a coherent product. You could say that, and I would hear that. Like the money and clout and availability of the Premier League is a blessing, but it's also a curse. You've de-incentivized England as a nation to build their own platform with their homegrown talent, and you've allowed them the resources to just pull the best from all over to create the best product possible, which is cool. But look at like the quality of the teams we have in England and compare that to the relative quality we have of the best English coaches available. It's crazy. Like we have to bring in foreign coaches to manage Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United, and Manchester City.
Do you think that's because the English coaches are not good enough?
Oh, 100%. If they were, we'd have them. 100%. If they
so
were,
we'd have them. If
there was an English Pep, he'd be managing City.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. I hear you.
If there was an English coach and like an English structure that was available, that was good enough, City wouldn't have like mirrored everything Barcelona tried to do.
Yeah, they literally did mirror. Yeah,
there would have been no need. They even got like the former Barca directors.
Yeah, they did. They
became English Barca.
Yeah, they did.
Like so that's the thing. So again, people don't just read the title. Like try and like listen to what I'm trying to say. Like the biggest I want people to understand. I appreciate the Premier League for what it is. Obviously, an entertainment product. I enjoy it. I'm not saying it's shitty. I'm not bagging on it. I'm just saying the money is a blessing and a curse. Right.
The good thing is for the money is because, like you said, you can go out and get all of the best talent in terms of players, managers, every coaching staff, even people above. But then that hinders the youth players and the homegrown players coming through because it's all about win now, and they're not necessarily the best. They don't get a chance to develop.
Yep.
They have to be exceptional to get into the team.
You have to be exceptional or find a loan or start out at like a smaller club. Declan Rice is probably the best young English central midfield player we have on offer. And let's be honest. Let's take England's midfield options in general.
Okay.
They don't stack up to what Italy can put out in an 11 in a European final.
Rice, Henderson, Calvin Phillips. Winks.
We're struggling, right?
Who else? I'm trying to think. Who else is England's midfield?
They
Yeah,
don't
you got
really,
Rice, you got Henderson, you got Phillips,
they
you
don't
got
really,
Winks.
they don't really stack up, do they?
They don't. Their sixes don't. Nah, I've said that's England's weakest part of their team. Is their
And
midfield.
like, as for why England don't produce midfielders of that level, that's a bit of a different conversation. I believe that's firmly down to how the game is emphasized and taught at a young age here relative to the rest of the world. Like England as a footballing culture, it's reactive. We praise defensive work, we praise tackles, we praise physical attributes. Those are what are focused upon at a young age. Like a Pedri wouldn't have been allowed to come through at like a West Ham academy. He would have been thrown out because he's too small of a frame.
Yep.
But we saw Pedri running people ragged at the Euros. Like that Spanish midfield got the better of the Italian midfield. They just lost in a shootout because Morata stinks, right? And look at what the Italian midfield did to the English midfield in the final.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like England.
To add to your point, sorry to cut you off. C1 just mentioned Bellingham again. He had to go out. That adds further into your point. He had to go elsewhere because Bellingham's not getting a shot. He wouldn't get a shot coming through at one of the elite clubs in the country. He wouldn't have got a shot.
Was anyone mentioning Bellingham in these conversations prior to his move to Dortmund?
No. Too small. That's what he would have said. Not physical enough. Too small. Don't tackle enough. Very much Sancho-esque.
Yes.
Nobody was mentioning Sancho when he was let go, saying this is terrible. And then he went to Dortmund and was successful. And then United chased him and now he's here. But he had to go elsewhere.
Yeah, it's very much a double-edged sword in terms of the resources and like what the Premier League emphasizes. Because really, at the end of the day, guys, there's no real focus on developing the best possible product for the national team. If there were, you would see some form of solidarity between clubs in terms of like providing opportunities for people to play. We're all like everybody in the Premier League, as with most businesses, is just in it to get as much money out of it as they possibly can. And to keep the level of the product high, you need to bring the best coaches you can, absolutely possible, and get some of the best players you possibly can. Right? The focus on development isn't there at the top level because it doesn't have to be. If you're a Burnley, if you're a Southampton, if you're a Brighton, I'm not necessarily talking to you. I'm talking about like what's happening at the top level. And yes, Bellingham did play games for
Burnley. I was going to get to that. Yeah, I was going to get to this.
But like he played in the championship. I'm talking about like top level and like Premier League football. I'm not saying Birmingham takes no credit for developing him, but my point is, would we view him this way if he never forced that move to Dortmund? Would we view him this way if he necessarily picked a United at that age and was sitting bench behind McTominay and Fred? Like,
facts.
You guys honestly think Bellingham would be getting minutes at United? No. Donny van de Beek can't even get minutes at United, and he's much more of a certified product than Bellingham was at the time he forced his move. And like again, a lot of these players, Sancho had to go abroad. Angel Gomez went abroad. Charlie Patino, he's a kid, hasn't really broken through yet. Hudson-Odoi, his career stagnated at Chelsea. Bellingham had to go. I'm not saying there's not talent. I am not saying there's not talent. I'm saying the infrastructure for developing and nurturing this talent to reach its absolute maximum potential is not there. Because one, the English coaches to properly get the best out of these players, I don't believe exist, because if they did, they'd be in charge at these top clubs. And two, if you are a foreign coach in charge at a Liverpool, City, United, or Chelsea, why is it within your best interest to do the best for the English game? You don't give a fuck about the English game. Why would you?
It's about your club. It's about your club.
Tuchel's here to win trophies. He's not here to make sure Hudson-Odoi reaches his absolute maximum potential necessarily. He'll do it as much as it's in the best interest of Chelsea. But if Chelsea finds an alternative solution, you bet your ass we're taking that.
Yeah.
It is what it is, you know? And so with the Premier League, I just want people to understand, like, when you say, oh, it's the best league in the world, it's the most popular, it's this, it's that. Like, the reality is, most of that is because of what the foreign potential we can bring into the league, whether that's players or managers, right? So, Bambo, we're asking a question here. It's not really a question. I'm trying to highlight why the inherent nature of the things in the Premier League and the realities that come with existing within the Premier League runs counterintuitive to the production and nurture of English talent at the top level of football here. Right? Like, gems will always come through. Gems will come through in any era. That will always be the case. If you've got a level player, they'll find a way to play. If you've got, like, I don't even necessarily want to say like Reece James and Mason Mount, because again, we were on a transfer ban. Like, I don't know for sure. And to be clear,
things had to fall into place for those two things to happen. I get
if you've got a Greenwood level player, they're gonna play. If you've got a Foden level player, they're gonna play. That's just how it is. They're always gonna play. They're the cream of the crop. They're the 1% of the 1%. And I'm not saying players cannot develop in the English footballing pyramid. I'm not saying that. I'm saying at the absolute top level, in terms of at these high level clubs competing domestically and for European success, this is just not the case. Because let's be honest, guys, you're only as strong. Your national team can only really be as strong, with the exception of a France, as the strength of your top clubs are in terms of like the domestic talent they have. Spain was strong when Barcelona and Real Madrid were strong. Those Barcelona and Real Madrid teams were insane, had plenty of Spanish players.
Facts, and dominated.
The Italian league, before the Calciopoli scandal, at the top level in the mid-2000s, had a crazy Juve team and a crazy Milan team, right? Off the back of that, they won a World Cup. You had that Bayern.
I know where you're going with this as well. I like this. Go on, carry on. Go on.
Bayern machine sitting there in the early 2010s, and you still had the remnants of a very good Dortmund team. And from that, you made the spine for a World Cup winning team in 2014. France is a bit of an outlier because people kind of fly the nest there from young, but you get to play at a very young age, right? So the people like... So, I mean, yeah, we could say it this way. Like the development of English players is not paramount on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not on the Premier League. Peter said that, though. That's not. But he's just making the point.
I guess that's a good alternate title.
Yeah.
Jez, Reece James and Mount would still be at Chelsea. The others, we don't know.
One thing I was going to say, going further, all of the major leagues in the past, probably 20 years, apart from England, have won a major tournament.
Yep.
Italy, Germany, France, Portugal, Spain.
Why do you think that is?
That's the top five. That's the five. And if you throw the Premier League, that's six.
Why do you
let me look at this? Because the reasons you spoke about in terms of when their teams was dominant. So when the Spanish teams were dominant, it was mainly Spanish players. When the German teams was dominant, it was mainly German teams. Same with Italian. France, not so much the teams, but it's more so Clairefontaine. Like, that's where that's come from. And the players are playing all across Europe. It's like 2 in every 3 youth players that pop up that are called are French.
Yep.
Everyone seems to get mentioned is French. 110%, apart from the fullbacks, but I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, aside from that. But yeah, that's a great point. Let me look at the league coefficients, actually. I want to see this. European League. Hold up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Netherlands, they are very dogmatic in terms of developing talent and kind of keeping it in-house as much as possible. The thing with nation or leagues like the Dutch league and the Portuguese league is the financial inequality is so great that they can't create enough talent to truly close the gap at the top level. Even though the Dutch team, they've got good players. The Portuguese national team obviously have good players. But they're not all. It's the kind of thing where once you get a certain age in Holland or in Portugal, you kind of have to go abroad because you kind of hit your cap in that league in terms of like developing and being able to play against teams that will like push you to be better, right? Like,
and the likes of Ajax, they know what. We'll use them for an example. They know what their model is. Their model is to produce players and sell them on big. Ajax's aim isn't to win the Champions League, because if their overall aim and goal was to win the Champions League, they would keep these players. Same with Portugal. These Portuguese sides, like, they are fully aware they will lose their
Right.
play. They don't fight to keep these players.
The Dutch league is purely for like identifying and like developing players at every level in the league. Like Ajax does it. Everyone's a feeder club for somebody else, but there's always going to be a next guy.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Like, if you go through, I bet if we run through, whether it's United and Chelsea, our teams, or whatever, or any other top teams in Europe, there'll be Dutch players in there, there'll be Portuguese players in there, definitely French players, etc. I was literally looking at the country coefficients, and they currently have England 1, Spain 2, Italy 3, Germany 4, France 5, Portugal 6. So, like I said, 5 out of the 6 have all won a tournament in recent times. The standout one is England.
England.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Is the Bundesliga also a bit of a development league? If you're at Bayern Munich, no. For everybody else, yes. We mentioned Bellingham and Sancho. Bellingham and Sancho
goes upward in Bundesliga. Yeah. Definitely. Like
Bellingham and Sancho were two.
The way German football was reinvented in the early 2000s in terms of like the renaissance and like coaching and like the focus on development, that is the point. The league is operating how it should be for what they wanted it to. We look at it and think, oh, it's a stupid farmers league. Bayern buys everybody. It's boring, right? Because we value leagues for the competitiveness and the product as like a neutral. Like we want tight title races all across the continent to follow, right? Like we value the entertainment aspect. Like at their core, the German Football Federation are like, no, we want our players to have the best possible chance to develop here to produce a coherent national team in every cycle to be as competitive as we can possibly be. And with the exception of the last 2 tournaments, they've done that. They made a semifinal, they made a final, they made a semifinal, they made another semifinal, then they won the World Cup. England have never had a run that good in 5 consecutive tournaments. There's no way.
And that's what it is like in terms of, like I said, outside of Bayern. Because if you look at Sancho, you look at Bellingham, you look at Haaland. Haaland's the hottest property right now. Haaland is and he's going to move. It's just a question of where. So outside of Bayern Munich, that is the league to put yourself in the shop window.
Yep.
Italy's kind of like that, depending on where you're at.
Thales didn't say Ajax can't win Champions League. They're saying it's not their goal. We have to understand, football in the 70s and 80s was different to now.
Yeah, it's different. They haven't won it. They won, what, 93? Come on, Bambo. Was you even alive then? Come on, fam.
They won in like the embryonic stage of the Premier League in terms of like the cash flow. So like football was still relatively even, right? They won like in the 70s and again like in the 90s.
Yes.
We need to understand like the landscape of European football 40 years ago is not the current landscape. The realities are just different. And yes, Ajax have a great team now. They'll probably beat Benfica. They'll probably go through to the quarterfinals. They may even get to a Champions League semifinal.
Which
we saw them in the semifinal in 2019. We're not saying they can't be competitive, but that 2019 team got ripped apart. This team will get ripped apart in time. That's just what happens.
That's what happened. Yes, because we've seen it happen with. Sorry to cut you off. With the Monaco side, we've seen that gets torn apart. Mbappe, Bernardo Silva, Bakayoko, Fabinho. Who else was in that side? There was more. There's more players in there. I've just named 4 off the top of my head.
Fabinho, Bernardo Silva, Mbappe, Falcao.
Yep, 5. That's what happens.
Thomas Lemar was in that team as well.
Thomas Lemar, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so like guys, the goal of certain leagues is development, right? And once players get to a stage where they're wanted by perceivedly bigger clubs, then they don't hold them back from going. Like we need to stop approaching other domestic leagues with the same logic we apply to the Premier League. We need to stop that. Like if there's a young player in France, even if he's at a Monaco or a Marseille, if a PSG wants that player, he's going to PSG. It is what it is. If there's a good young player at Hoffenheim or Leverkusen and Bayern want them, they're going to Bayern. It is what it is. The elite talent will always swim upstream. That's just how it works. And with those countries being able to either develop players as best they can and send them abroad, or develop players as best they can and keep them in the league, the development is the key part in terms of putting together a coherent national team. Like you've got a bunch of players in this Dutch team probably play all over the continent.
Yep.
But most of them got their introduction to football within the Dutch footballing pyramid. That's where most of their education stems from. and having the coaches in place to properly nurture that talent so they don't stagnate like we often see English players, then you can maintain a competitive national team to that level.
Yeah, and the thing is, Trans is saying there, who's world class. That we're not talking about world class because you don't need to be world class to win tournaments. Does it help? Absolutely. Like them Spanish teams we've seen, quality, full of world class players. That Italian team, how many world class players are in it? Let's keep it real.
Yeah,
Jorginho, you could argue.
It's a bunch of debatable players, but like,
yes,
again,
who you could again argue. There's no one that you stand like. For me, it's Jorginho. Verratti wasn't fit, but I put Verratti there, but he didn't play all the games. You've got Bonucci and Chiellini, who are top class, but I wouldn't say are world class, but they're up there. So let's say, for argument's sake, it's free. That's not a team full of it.
We had no one was hype on Spinazzola before they saw him at the Euros.
Yep.
Before he like burst his Achilles, right? Emerson was the left back who came in and played the last 2 games, right? Their front three was Immobile, it was Insigne, who's 6 months away from going to MLS, by the way, and Berardi from Sassuolo. Like, we'd all be lying. Like, Flawless still doesn't rate that front three.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't really either, but I said it was good enough. The midfield was good enough to win it.
As he said, and that's why I rated it. That's why I was saying during that tournament, I was like, adding Verratti into there is key. Because he can be the difference maker. And the games he played, we've seen the difference. Jorginho, I'm a fan of as well. It's the rest.
Yes,
so
exactly.
You don't need world-class players to do that.
It's not necessarily about just developing a bunch of world-class players and throwing it together. If that was the case, France would win every tournament.
Yeah.
France would win, right? But when you look at the Italian team play and you look at the Spanish team play, for example, 2 examples of teams that are fantastic operating systems. They don't necessarily have the elite level players at the top end, right? But you watch the team play and you're like, wow, like this team seems amazing. If you take it on paper, the English squad should probably not be losing to the Italian squad.
No chance.
Let alone losing from a position where you're 1-0 up in your home stadium.
No chance.
Should not be losing that, right?
That comes to systems.
But
that's an issue within itself.
When you watch the actual final, England from about minute 50 onwards could not get out of their own half. All of that hype from the first half, all of this hope, it turned to nervous energy the moment Bonucci bundled that corner in. The moment they scored and made it 1-1, I'm like, England are going to lose. Right? And I guess, to sort of pivot topics a bit, we have to sort of talk about, in terms of, teams and England specifically coming up short, we need to talk about why England lose midfield battles against any respectable country that they play in any major tournament.
Ooh, talk about it.
Right? So to kind of pivot, guys, and if you're gonna read the title, understand I'm not necessarily talking about this in this moment, right? The qualities, the things we love about English football, more importantly, the things that are focused on, the things that are reinforced, whether it's punditry, whether it's coaching, whether it's even fans, the stuff that people talk about is oftentimes the stuff that pops off, the stuff that catches your eye, whether it's a recovery run and a tackle, right? Or whether it's just general passion or intensity, right? The things we focus on as a footballing country, right? We don't you oftentimes hear when a team loses, oh, they didn't want it badly enough, they were lazy, didn't run hard, blah blah blah. It's very rare, guys, that teams lose because they're lazy, right? Take my girls' team that I coach, for example. We lost the game to the league champions yesterday, 1-0, because we couldn't defend a set piece. It wasn't because they were lazy. It wasn't because they tried hard. We missed a penalty kick in the first half. We had the better of the game, but it's fine margins at the highest level, right? It's just oftentimes in England, at least, I notice, people choose to focus on that. If you look like you're trying hard, if you look like you're trying, people will reward that. Yep. On the inverse, if you are sort of a lackadaisical style player, if you're fairly emotionless,
like me, that's me, I get criticized.
You'll get criticized. You'll be branded as lazy or aloof, right? Look at, and I know this is a bit of a touchy subject for people, look at the reaction to Martial when he does anything when United are in poor form, compared to the reaction that like a Dan James used to get.
Yeah.
If you look like you're trying hard, the English media and like pundits and like analysts and coaches and stuff like that shit is rewarded, which is great, and that sounds cool. That's like some real Boy Scout shit. But like football is about like it's about so much more than just running hard and tackling and like being reactive, right? Eventually, you're gonna have to get on the ball, show some quality. Like you're going to need positional awareness to snuff out counterattacks before they even begin. You're going to need to understand how to coherently play through a press. Your body positioning, right? Like it needs to be at a level to where you don't just get stripped for the ball in midfield every 4 seconds. Like there needs to be quality to what you're doing. And so much of that isn't focused upon like in the English game. Look at a player like Jorginho. I don't know why a lot of you started rating him just because he won the Euros. Like I feel like
been cold, fam.
Bro, it took a Champions League run and a European winners run for people to respect him. And even still now, it's all done through gritted teeth. Like players like that just don't get appreciated. Like Varane, when he was here, kind of suffered from the same thing. Like cerebral players are not appreciated for their qualities. We try and apply the things we want to see in players, like in terms of like intensity and like strength and like stuff like that. Like in the grand scheme of things, they're all professional footballers. They're all very strong. They're all very intense. They obviously care. You just don't need to you shouldn't have to see it on their face for 90 minutes to understand that they give a fuck about what they're doing. They obviously do. They wouldn't be professional footballers if they didn't. They care to a certain extent, you know. But in terms of like, look at the Spanish midfield players that play for their team. Look at them. Pedri's 5'8", right? Ooh, penalty for Mali. Koke is like 5'9". Sergio Busquets is Sergio Busquets. You guys honestly think Busquets would have the legacy he does if he played in the Premier League for the last 12 years?
Absolutely not. Don't run enough. Don't show enough energy. Don't show enough desire. Not big enough. Not strong enough. Premier League too physical.
Yes.
But then Pep comes in the league doing exactly that with Bernardo Silva and David Silva and Jesus and Sterling and Foden and now Grealish and Aguero.
A team of people 5'10" and under, and they slap everybody.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. Yes, where's the physicality and Stones and Zinchenko? Like, this is spot on, innit? So you need all that to win the Premier League, but Pepper's coming. We haven't seen dominance like that since Sir Alex.
This is bad. I'm gonna be honest, guys. The way City win the leagues, they like take the fun out of this shit.
Yeah, they do. They suck the life out of it.
Running against like a Sir Alex team, if you're like 6 points back, you felt like you had a chance. You're 6 points behind City. It's a long day, guys.
Show's over.
Not fun, right? Like, so just like for me, look at the Spanish midfield, right? You got Koke, you've got Pedri, you've got Busquets, you've got whoever else you want to throw in there. They're probably 5'7", with the exception of Busquets. They're probably average to above average athletes. I think this penalty got overturned. Nice. Look at the Italian midfield. You've got Jorginho, you've got Nico Barella, you've got Verratti, you've got Locatelli, you've got Matteo Pessina. None of you in the comments can even tell me where Matteo Pessina plays. You don't even know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm not gonna lie to you. You already know I don't know. But I'm honest enough to tell you I don't know.
You're like, you hear the name like, who's that nigga? I don't know. And like, but my point is, they're all similar frames. They're all similar builds. They're not these 6'2" running and tackling monsters who are winning aerial duels every 14 seconds because that's how the game is played. No, right? Let's look at, the French midfield, like Pogba's a bit of an outlier, right? You've got N'Golo Kante. You've got, maybe the French midfield's not the best example. Let's look at the German midfield from when they won the World Cup. So you had Kroos, you had Schweinsteiger, and you had Ozil.
Yeah, that's not the most physical. That get criticized. That would get criticized. That would definitely get criticized.
When he was here, and we already know how Ozil was dragged through the coals. We already know. Like, do you guys really think we'd be heaping the praise on Kroos that he gets from Real Madrid fans if he was here for the last 12 years?
Max?
No, of course not. Of course we wouldn't. Like, come on, guys. Like, my point is, They're good footballers. They are good players, right? They're not raised in reactive environments that prioritize physicality and like defensive attributes. All of these players were raised with the ball at their feet, truly teaching them how to play. It's why, like, look at England's midfield players. Declan Rice is our best one.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Declan Rice is our best one. We had to put Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips in there against Jorginho, Barella, and Barassi.
Yeah,
that was a long day, guys.
That is a long day.
Half.
Speaking of that, let me do this before I go to the toilet. Same with the Croatia game. You know what I'm saying? When they lost the semi-final, you put in, I can't remember who England's midfield was. You put him against Modric and Rakitic.
Kovacic and Brozovic, and they were schooling us. It is what it is. Like, we just need to
go back to that one. Keep going.
There's always going to be more to football than tackles and passion and desire and intensity. Like, there's more to it. Like, you have to get on the ball and you have to make something happen. Like, there needs to be intelligence. There needs to be like a coherent like idea with the ball at your feet. It's just not as, I feel like too much of it is oversimplified in terms of teaching the game in English. And it's good to see young midfielders coming through now that are not playing like traditional English midfielders. Because I promise you guys, we keep producing Jordan Hendersons, we're not going to get very far, like as a country. And the Star Sailor, you're right. The French league is, and I'm going to go through some of these comments, guys. It is physical, but like they're still ball players. Like, yes, Chouameni is a very like high level athlete, but he's still good on the ball, right? Bambo, you're asking how come the golden generation never won anything? Simply put, there were better teams around. There were just better teams, more high functioning teams around. Like, just because you put talent together doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. Again, France would win every fucking tournament if it was just who was the most talented. That Italian team would have got knocked out in the quarterfinals if it was based on talent. The Belgian team had more talent than them, but Jorginho had them stripping for 90 minutes. They couldn't get near the ball. This man was running
and also
the ground.
The golden generation, the manager wasn't good enough. We talk about system, the manager wasn't good enough. He needed to drop. You have Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, Owen, and Rooney. Those players don't mix. You have to drop one of them, whether you play a 4-3-3, whether it's a 4-5-1, whether it is 4-4-2, and you drop either Scholes, Gerrard, or Lampard. Stroh always makes the point. Scholes and Gerrard should have been the one. The game that England won, I believe, 5-1 in Germany, it was a Scholes, Gerrard. It was Scholes, Gerrard in the midfield. Mm-hmm. Any of those two work. You play Scholes with one of them, but again, that comes to playing players in position. And that's what the issue is.
You fucking ship Scholes out to the left wing.
You don't do that because then it imbalances your whole team and then play Rooney. I think it was Rooney and Owen up front. Like, drop one of them. Do something.
Yep.
Change it. Play wing backs. Do something. But he just wanted to shoehorn. It's not FIFA. You can't just play all the best players. It don't work like that.
So, Jez, this is a good question. Most of the French talents are African descent. What do you rate the actual French talent who are fully French? To be honest, if we're removing imperialism from this, I don't really rate France as like a nation for development. Like, Italians develop actual like Italian players, and Spanish football develops actual Spaniards. France just seems to take the best of the best from Africa and make them French. And that is a morally ambiguous thing to do, right? But like, we need to understand like imperialism is part of football in Western Europe. Like, Sterling's Jamaican. A bunch of the English, like Grealish is Irish, you know. Calvin Phillips, he's probably not like naturally English like that. Most of the English players probably aren't either. That's just like, that's a future of like Western European football in 2022. That's just how it works.
Yeah, you're spot on, fam. Absolutely in that. Absolutely. So, I mean, like a lot of things come into play. Go on.
The academies are good. I'm not saying the academies are not good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying in terms of like the elite players who rise to the top and play for the French team, they just more often than not happen to be of African descent.
Like, that's legit what it is. Or else you are Asian, room, or Italian and French, possibly. Because, like I say, most of us just in life, most of your people's friends, like, there's very few people who are just one thing, like one nation. We're all a mix. It's very rare that both your mom's side and dad's side of the family are the same. Like, I have one cousin in my entire family who has that, who his mom and his dad are, but everyone's mixed. Everyone's mixed. If Peter was a professional footballer, I bet there's 2 or 3 teams he could play for. If I'm a
I played
professional
for some
footballer,
random country from West Africa because let's be
there you
honest,
go.
I'm black and born in America, so like my family was slaves at some point. My mom was born in Trinidad. I was born in
See,
America, so I've got 3 at least.
see. So
I'd
you,
probably play Trinidad if I had the choice. That just
see,
seems
so
fun.
you got mixed. So that's Peter. He has 3. I have 3 to choose from. I'm sure you lot in the chat will have minimum of 2, unless you're one thing. Whether even if it's someone who's white in England and they're English, they might be of Irish descent. We've seen
I'll
that
be
with Jack
honest, if
Grealish.
you guys aren't mixed, I feel bad for you. That seems very boring.
Yeah, most people are mixed.
Very boring. Imperialism and French, bro. African football. I feel like African football is not as far away as Europe and predominantly white places like to pretend. The gap between a lot of African nations and some of these mid-level countries in Europe who like to act like they're high and mighty just because they play in the Euros when really like they're not any fucking good is not very big. It's really not. Like the thing with African football is resources, one, and being able to get the proper coaches in place. Because like England has the luxury to outsource coaching in a way, Africa is like sort of does it as like a necessity for their national teams. It's also a thing like a lot of the domestic leagues aren't necessarily at a place where they can properly develop a pool of talent for coaches to pick from. You kind of have to do the diaspora thing with African nations and hope you get your players into Europe and they come back and they're at a level where you can put a team together and be successful. Like I know Croatia's not African, but Croatia do that. Hardly any other players other than I would say Orsic. Off the top of my head, I'm sure there's probably a few more, but like he plays for Zagreb. But most of their players grew up in Croatian football, but now they play at some other country, like in some other league, you know.
And
Like
you
you said it, the gap is financial. It's not actually a skill thing. It's not. Like I hope you guys don't think Harry Winks is better than these center mids we're seeing in AFCON. Like I hope you don't think so. Because he's not. He's just not. He's just white. And like, no,
say that again, fam. Say that again. We love that.
Bro,
say what you just said again.
Harry Winks, right? England's fourth choice, like 6th player. I hope you don't think he's better than these AFCON center mids we're watching for like Equatorial Guinea and Mali. If anyone's watching, like, you can't tell me Harry Winks is better than Cheku Kouyaté. You can't. You can't. He's not. I'm sorry, he's not.
Way better than Imran Luzo. I'll put that out there right now.
He's not, bro. He's not. It's just this is IC3 tax, bro.
He's not.
He's not. He's not. Stop this. Like, guys, let's be honest. Get Africa a few solid coaches and let's raise the level of the domestic leagues like 10-15%. And in 20 years, it's looking spooky for a lot of Europe.
I could see that happen.
I'm not saying they can move to Spain or France. They definitely move to England, bro.
Yeah, I could see that happening. 100. Like we've seen Africans come to England or come to major European countries and ball out, fam. Ball out. We've seen this. Premier League, like you're a Chelsea fan, you know all about that.
And this is the thing as well. If some of these people who come from the homeland to Europe to play, if they go back and play for their home countries, like we're seeing it a lot with Jamaica now. Like, guys, Jamaica, you throw Mikel Antonio in that team, they're going to challenge to make this World Cup.
Facts.
You know, like if people decided to not do a Saka and turn your back on your home nation on Nigerian Independence Day, and you actually go play for your home nation, the gap will be closed. Trust me.
Absolutely.
And see, like Noah, again, North Africa, it's a bit different because like you're geographically much closer to Europe, so the pathway is much more realistic. So a lot more Moroccan, like the Moroccan starting 11 all of them play in Europe. I think it's like 3 in Spain, or 2 in Spain, 3 in England, 3 in France, 1 in Belgium, and like 1 in Turkey. And then I think 1 plays in Holland or something like that. United States football is different. We don't give a fuck about football like that here. We don't care enough, right? Like, we have the resources, we have the talent, the passion for like identifying it and getting it to the top level and nurturing it to be competitive isn't there. We just kind of want to be good enough to be in the World Cup, but we don't give a fuck about winning it. Let's be real. Like, we're never going to win one. We just don't care. And it's not our best athletes aren't playing. It's none of that shit. We just don't care enough.
Yeah, you don't care for it like you care for basketball.
Yeah, we don't care. If this nation really got behind it and got invested over 20 years, I promise you we'd be better than England. I promise you. I promise we would. Like, let's be real. Like, until you guys produce coherent central midfield players, you're not going anywhere.
But we won't, because it's all passion, hard yards, and desire.
You can have 7 dope right backs all you want, brother. You're still playing Harry Winks or fucking Jordan Henderson. Like, I don't care.
Jesus. Jordan Henderson, you know. When you compare Jordan Henderson to Varane.
Yeah, bro. Like, what do you think they're gonna do?
What was England? Let me check what England's midfield was in that semi-final against Croatia. Have a look. I don't know exactly what it was. Let me check that.
I think it was Henderson.
Henderson was there because he had a mare. I remember.
Yes.
He had a mare. Yeah, World Cup semi-finals. Here we go.
Our playoffs in MLS. Yeah, it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, so their midfield was Brozovic, Modric, and Rakitic. And then, England's wait. No chance. England's midfield was Henderson, Lingard, and Ashley Young. What?
You wondered why you didn't win, brother?
Because they've got it here. How they've got it on here when I've seen, so it's Pickford in goal. Then they're saying, no, actually, it would have been, because they've got it here. They've messed it up, though. So it's Walker, Stones, and Maguire as your back three.
Yes.
Ashley Young and Trippier would have been with your wing backs. Yeah. Then your midfield is Henderson, Lingard, and Dele Alli.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And then Sterling and Kane up front.
And you're wondering why you didn't win.
When you've got Lingard, but Dele Alli and Henderson are not it. Like, they're not it. Like, no. Like, and then you got Winks, Calvin Phillips. Like, Bellingham gives them a shout. That's a step in the right direction, is what I would say. I'd like to Bellingham. He is definitely a massive step.
Spain will have 3 Bellinghams, bro.
This guy. It's still a step in the right direction, though, is what I'm saying.
That's great. Pedri's 19. He's going to be there for the next 15 years.
Like, because if you got Bellingham and then you get over, then you've got a cohesive unit. If they get one more.
Mm-hmm.
If you put a Bellingham level player next to Bellingham now, say who's a bit more defensively solid. That's a good midfield pivot.
Basically, craft me the ideal DM and we're almost there.
Yeah, to an extent. You know what I'm saying? Or just the better DMs than what they have is what I'm saying.
I hear you.
Not necessarily Fabinho or Jorginho, but even the B level, even the level below. Because like Phillips, I think is air. Rice is decent. Henderson is Winks.
And again, this is the thing. Gareth Southgate is in charge. Gareth Southgate can't look Roberto Mancini or Luis Enrique in the eyeballs. He can't. What are you do? Flex a relegation from Borough? Come on.
That's a big hit. That is a big hit. Because the one thing England do have, and I've said it before, similar to United, their strength is in attack. So why not utilize that? This pragmatic approach. I said it for Junks years. He's just Ollie in a waistcoat. He's Ollie in a waistcoat.
How can we get mad at? But how can we realistically get upset at Gareth Southgate's pragmatic approach to football when England as a footballing nation are pragmatic and reactionary?
They are. Go further on that. Elaborate on that in terms of England as a nation. I don't
understand. Right? Gareth Southgate is a product of the English coaching system in terms of like development, right? He got all his badges in the English game. It's what he knows. It's what he played in. It's what he coached, right? That's all he knows. He grew up in the same environment, right? So he is a personification of said environment. How can anyone legitimately be surprised when at the highest level? And to be fair to him, he's done better than English managers in the past. But
definitely
those high leverage moments, how can we be surprised when he reverts to type? Yeah, that's all he knows. That's what he grew up doing. That's what was reinforced to him.
Being pragmatic.
legitimately be shocked at him. He's just doing what he knows, right? Like
go on.
The World Cup, and they fully committed to the tiki-taka thing under Aragones before he passed. God rest Aragones' soul, right? But they completely reformed. They said, "Fuck this. This is what we're gonna do now." Even in 2014 when it didn't work, even in 2016 when it didn't work well, they came right back, right? They're like, you know what? We're still doing this. So by the Euros last year, you're absolutely bopping teams out the park with like fucking Pedri and like Busquets and like whomever and Koke. Like that's not the sexiest midfield. That's not the best midfield in the tournament. But you watch them play, you couldn't get the ball off them.
It's just that their attack was trash.
In high leverage moments, especially between major European nations, I'm convinced that teams revert to the culture of their coach, and in some cases, like the culture of their footballing nation. Whereas, like Italy, was seen as a traditionally reactive nation. We saw that's kind of how, like, we see Mancini go in there, implement a possession-based 4-3-3, and like very controlled, right?
Yeah.
And it's like just very proactive. It's like very sort of anti-traditionally Italian in how we think of the game. Like people in their mid-30s to mid-50s will still sit there and swear up and down to you that Serie A is a defensive league. Serie A averages the most goal in fixtures this season, like in terms of like the top 5 European leagues.
All right, I did not know that.
Most goals, right? So defensive league, not really, but like sure, right? But when things got tough for Italy, they went down 1-0 to England. They still were like, hey, this is what we're here. This is what we're here to do. This is what we're going to do. If we lose, fuck it. Then we lose. It is what it is. But we're not going to fucking lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
In that final, England couldn't get out of their own half. That's the way Mancini coaches football, right? The way Southgate coaches football is exactly how that final went.
Yeah, and that's a problem within itself. Don't forget, people, make sure you hit the like button on the video. Make sure you do that. Subscribe to the channel. And also don't forget, even though me and Peter are here talking England and international football, if you want us to switch topics with us, if you do super chat, we'll switch to whatever topic you've mentioned in the super chat, just letting you lot know. But now you're right. And that's the problem within itself, that Southgate's in charge because he's doing what he knows, but what he knows isn't good enough. I think if you put this England team in the hands of a better manager, I think they win that tournament.
I believe so, but if you don't know better, how can you do better?
Do better, yeah, and that's the issue that's on the FA for not knowing that. I said this already, like, the main reason why I was so convinced England don't win that tournament was the manager, because the players are there. When you have that much attacking quality, you can win a tournament. It's not like winning a league where you need to be solid. You know what I'm saying? But the attacks that you have, Sterling, Kane, Grealish, Foden, Rashford, Greenwood, Saka, the list goes on. I just named 7 off the top of my head. Sancho, I forgot Sancho. That's 8. How can you not make that work? Calvert-Lewin, Danny Ings, the list goes on and on. And then from attack, and from your right back perspective, you have Trent, one of the best attackers. You have Reece James, you have Lamptey. So there's other options in there. You have Bellingham, who we spoke on, you can throw in the mix as well. Hey, you got to do better. You have to do better.
But again,
that's also in the FA. On,
if
buddy.
You don't know better as coaches, how can you do better?
Facts. And yeah, thank you. I know I look cute. Thank you.
You can only reach as far as you can see. You can only dream as high as like you can visualize, you know? That's what it is. So like Black Diamond said, they hired Big Sam, bro. The only reason he got sacked is because they had like the whole like tapping up like scandal. It wasn't performance based. They hired Big Sam Allardyce, and that wasn't that long ago.
Nah,
it was before.
I wanted to see it though. I wanted to see it,
but like again, like,
I wanted to see it.
Like imagine Holland hiring Big Sam in 2017, or like a Big Sam equivalent. They would never do that.
Oh my god!
Like what? What are we doing here? Like, so when people act shocked, it's like, oh, why are we shocked? This is what this country knows.
And that's why it's not shocking. I'm saying they need to do better. How come someone's not like, oh, we need to do better here? Because we have a chance to do it.
Bro, you know how egotistical and arrogant these people who like run this footballing association are. You know how much humility and self-awareness it would take to realize we don't have a coach capable of leading this team to where we want to go, so we have to outsource our national team job. You know how much humility
So you
that would
reckon
take?
it's that? Okay.
Yes.
I hear you.
They basically have to admit that they haven't done their job well enough in terms of producing a coach for their national team. Because at the top level in Europe, let's be honest, like when you're talking England, France, Spain, Italy, like even Holland, like those in Portugal, like those leagues should produce coaches well enough to lead their teams.
I hear that.
Resources are there. It's one thing if you've got like a star-studded generation in Croatia, right? It's one thing to bring in and out, like outsource the coaching responsibility for that team. I understand that, right? Because like, let's be honest, like if the level of your players matches like the financial reality of your league, you should probably have a domestic coach in place. I'll just put it that way.
When all of the other major nations won their league, did they have all the managers were from that country as well, weren't they?
Yeah, 06, Italy had, I don't remember who Italy had as coach. There's no way they had a foreign coach. Spain, for 08, they had Aragones, and then it was Bosque. Who won in 2014? Jogi Löw's German. 2016, Portugal had Fernando Santos. So he's Portuguese, right?
Believe so. Let me check.
Yes, he is Portuguese.
What was his name?
Fernando Santos.
Yeah, probably. Let's see.
I'm pretty sure he's Portuguese.
Yeah, he's Portuguese. You're right. Yeah, it's fine. He's right. You're right.
Is obviously French.
Yeah.
And Mancini is Italian. Yes.
This is a damn indictment of like English coaches.
It's not even just the coaches; it's the footballing culture and why they can't produce
the whole thing. Yeah. But Graham Potter, like you said, we spoke on him. But Graham Potter did. It's not like he grew up here in terms of like his football. Was he not?
He had to go abroad in terms of coaching. He cut his teeth in Sweden. That Östersund's team.
He was at Östersund's, yeah.
I think he brought them from the second or third division into the first division.
Something crazy like that.
League. He got them in the Europa League knockout round. Östersund's.
Yeah.
And Graham Potter completely went out on his own and did that for himself. He didn't stay in the comfy English pyramid and work his way up from League One. He went. And when he came back to England, he didn't even get the Brighton job straight away. He got the championship job at Swansea. He did all that championship job. He went from Swansea, finished 9th at Swansea, then Brighton hired him. Everybody mocked Brighton for it. He was like, oh, he couldn't even get Swansea promotion. Brighton had some sort of like actual vision and intelligence. And the first 2 seasons, he finished with less points than Steve Bruce. People were sitting here and saying Steve Bruce is a better manager than Graham Potter. People were sitting here and saying that. Okay. And just like the fact that people could even claim that just shows me that, like, hey, you know what? And people just aren't serious about it.
Yeah, they're not.
This is very strange.
And yo, don't block Bainesy. People are modded people. If that's the real him, he's modded. Big up Bainesy in it. I didn't know if it was you, Bainesy. I'm not gonna lie. Oh yeah, go on, carry on, Pete. I'm just double checking that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. Like, moral of the story, guys, the way that England produce coaches is hindered by the current reality of the Premier League in terms of like the financial clout and like the reputation. You kind of are forced to make this demon of a competitive product. And for that to happen, you end up outsourcing more than you would perhaps like in the within the framework of producing an ideal national team that doesn't exist with like just operating in like the demon of the Premier League. Unlike other countries, they have, you could say it's the luxury to do that, but I would say they're kind of forced to do that. And Ryan is sitting here claiming credit for Graham Potter. Ryan, you don't get credit for Graham Potter.
Oh shit, is that the real? Yeah, it is the real Bainesy. Don't block him, man. That is the one who just said, Ryan, get your flowers. That is Bainesy. That is the real one.
My point is, Graham Potter is the best English coach available. That's more an indictment on the English coaches than me really praising the level Graham Potter's at. Like, Graham Potter's a good coach, guys. Don't get me wrong. He is a good coach. But, like, for every Graham Potter, there is a Gasparini in Italy, right? For every Graham Potter, there's I guess Bordalas isn't really a good example. Let me think. Young and upcoming Spanish coach. Marcelino's not really upcoming. He's kind of established. Can anybody think of the Spanish equivalent of Graham Potter? Can anybody think of
that? I'm saying Italy. I think it was Marcello Lippi who won it for Italy.
I'm just telling you, Italy would never have a foreign coach. They would never. They would never. They would rather die. They would never. They're too proud for that shit.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah. I guess Xavi, yeah, that's true. I forget about him. I guess. Yeah. But my point is, guys, like, if Graham Potter is England's best coach, let's take Italy's best coach. Let's take Spain's best coach. Let's take France's best coach. Let's take Portugal's and let's take Holland's best coach, and let's compare. I guarantee you Graham Potter's last on that list. That is the problem. That is the problem. So, yes, the Premier League is great. I love it. I watch it. I'm a supporter of a club in the Premier League. I'm not saying it's not great. I'm not saying you can't enjoy it. I'm not saying you can't enjoy things. I'm just saying the way the beast currently operates is not supportive of producing a coherent national team and providing an environment where young English players can truly flourish at all levels. Like, the cream rises to the top in the Prem. Whether that cream's domestic or foreign is up to you.
More often than not, it is domestic. I mean, it is foreign, sorry. We see that. Yep. Most players are. I'm saying, but we going to close out the show on that note, Peter. On that note, people, big up to Peter as always. Like I say, Agenda FC, we're here every Wednesday, people. Every Wednesday we are here. Lewis will be back. Shout out to my guy, Carefree Lewis. Peter, any fantastic topic, great show. Anything you want to add before we leave the stream?
Nah, guys. Good show. We'll think of something for next week.
Absolutely.
If you guys have any suggestions, you guys know how to get in contact with us.
Facts.
We're going to be over on Mimi TV shortly.
Yeah, in about 15 minutes, people.
Yeah, so
Nothing Tough Limits / West Brom, whoever they're playing in the championship, watch along. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So you guys know where to find us.
Absolutely. Well, big up to everyone who's tuned in. Don't forget, all the shows on the channel, people, apart from watch-alongs, are available on audio-only platforms. So if you want to listen on SoundCloud, Spotify, or iTunes, the links are underneath in the description as well. So make sure you check them out. All the shows, Agenda FC, In the Mud, Man United, Ballers at the Bridge, all of them aside from watch-alongs. Don't forget, head over to the Twitch as well, people, to check out Sarcasm City TV FC Pro Clubs. So it's on FIFA 22. So whether it's me doing a career mode, whether it's Pro Clubs and we're running a league or cups, or whether we're beating up worldwide Chelsea as always, you know what I'm saying? We're 8-1 in the last 9. So they need to get it together. And that being said,
worldwide Chelsea, you got to fold as a club.
Yeah, they need to get better.
You're making the actual Chelsea look bad.
Lewis said the same thing. And that being said, also, I will be running at some point just open trials, people. So I'll be on there probably by myself or maybe with one other. And we're just doing open trials and looking. Because I do want to we got an A team. I'm looking to get a B team, a C team, etc. And run this shit properly. And that's when I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm like, all right, we're going to run this thing properly. So there's an A team, a B team, a C team, etc., etc. Is there an agenda? If it's facts though, because you both were spitting off stream, says Prime. It was the reason why it's more just a play on words with the Agenda FC, because people will say that when they disagree with you and that type of thing.
I only try to bring topics I feel strongly about and connect.
Yes, right.
I'm not going to sit here and say Salah stinks like Orion would. Like, the point of me on this show is not to make people angry; it's to make you think.
Yeah.
If it made me make you angry, that's fine. Like, I'm telling you now, I don't care. But like, I try to reason and provide logic. So even if you disagree, you can kind of see what my point is.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to make them such small topics as oftentimes as X player is better than Y player. Like, I probably won't make a Thiago Silva is a better center back than John Terry Agenda FC, because that just introduces tribalism, and the proper Chelsea get upset at me.
Yeah.
As much as I don't think I will.
And that's what it is with Agenda FC, people. It's more top topics like this we can just bring up. It's not like it's international breaking England to play, but it's a good topic, so we're gonna run it type of thing. Like I've got a couple. Like this whole wanting a tougher team in the Champions League draw or any draw is something I'm gonna run at some point. Probably closer
100%.
to the Champions League. Like I'll probably run it twice because we've done that before on Agenda FC where we ran shows back. You know what I'm saying? So I'll probably run that because I've got into it today and yesterday about it. So that will probably happen. I know Peter's got loads more topics. Surfer's got topics. Ryan's got topics, etc. So yeah, we're gonna keep this show on the road, people. We will. We're gonna keep the show on the road. But yeah, love to everyone that's locked in. Don't forget, 11 p.m. Sarcasm City Sports Q&A, people. 11 p.m. So be back on this channel Q&A, and then Timo is holding down the Heat versus the Knicks that I will not be there for. But yes, check out the upcoming live stream schedule. Let you know all the shows that are coming up. But this has been Agenda FC on the Sarcasm City TV YouTube. Big up for tuning in.